The Wire is a crime drama set in Baltimore, Maryland, created and written mostly by David Simon, a former police reporter. At face value, The Wire is about the drug scene, the economy of the drug trade, the business, the environment, and the efforts of a city like Baltimore to police drugs. Factors like race and systemic discrimination are also explored, with each season of the show primarily tackling different institutions to showcase the interconnectivity of such establishments, such as the Baltimore Port Authorities, the educational system, the city bureaucracy, and journalism. One of the more memorable characters of The Wire, something of a fan favourite, is the cold, calm, grim reaper-like figure of Chris Partlow. Chris is the primary enforcer of the Stanfield organization, led by the force of nature Marlo Stanfield, who eats up the Barksdale territories after Avon Barksdale is sent to prison at the end of Season 3. He first appears in Season 3 and is a key player in the turf war between the Stanfields and the Barksdale crew. He is observant and intelligent, as, for example, his observation leads to identifying Avon Barksdale's car, and he gets off some shots, injuring Avon and killing one of his soldiers. In Season 4, it is a common sight to see Chris and the young female soldier Snoop amble around at night, capturing targets and murdering them in vacant buildings, covering the corpses in quicklime and nailing the buildings shut. The murders are cold, emotionless, and efficiently carried out, 3 phases that summarize Chris as a character. Even Marlo takes advice from him, such as when he agrees to only kill Stanfield dealer Fruit's murderer, as opposed to the killer's entire organization, a suggestion made by Chris. Now, strangely, Chris can be quite endearing as a character. Maybe that's because, next to guys like Marlo and Snoop, he seems to be more level-headed and sees his next murder as just business, just another job, with a strong ability to compartmentalize and not allow his emotions to overcome his rationale in decision-making. There seems to be a lack of sadism about him. He is also humanized, with it being revealed he has a family of his own, and his vicious beating of a paedophile as a favor to Mike, instead of the typical vacant job, suggests he himself was abused as a youth. With all that being said, Chris is still a sociopath of the highest order, and perhaps the most cold-blooded murder in the entire show, that of a delivery woman in order to falsely implicate Omar, is carried out by him, as is the killing of a security guard who talked back to Marlo. He also tortures the blind Butchie and is the triggerman on the Proposition Joe murder, among numerous others. Eventually, Chris is sentenced to prison, life without parole, due to numerous murders he takes credit for on behalf of the Stanfield organization, much like how Weebay did in Season 1 for the Barksdale crew. And during the end of season montage at the end of Season 5, there is a brief shot of Chris and Weebay talking in a prison courtyard. A great shot. 2 soldiers without a war, 2 men without a country. On the outside, they would have been on opposite sides, but in here, they are just 2 men chatting away. Now, judging by his unflinching ability to take life in prison, his military-like attitude to street war and murder, it wouldn't be crazy to suggest that Chris might have actually had a past in the military or the police force. Well, it's interesting then that there is actually a shot in the show which suggests this, as in Season 1 Episode 4, during a scene in a courtroom, there is a shot of Benga Akinagbe in police uniform as a courthouse bailiff maybe, the same actor who played Chris. This brings up wild possibilities, such as whether Marlo had a mole in the police force this whole time, The Departed style, or whether Chris was actually a former cop who went rogue and started working for the same people he was once trying to lock up. Or maybe Chris just snuck into the courthouse from time to time, trying to scope new targets or put his ear to the wall for important information. It's a cool theory, of course, but it doesn't quite work for numerous reasons. I mean, you would think that at some point, given this is a show that follows cops, someone along the lines would have mentioned that Chris used to be in the police force. Plus, there is a scene later on where Chris is actually in the courthouse to get some documents and he needs help being directed. I'm not being fully serious with this video, of course. This is a bit of a light theory, a bit of a joke video, but I mean, the evidence is right there on the screen. Chris Partlow in police uniform all the way back in Season 1. Still, it's a cool little thing that some fans might have as headcanon, that Chris used to be a cop, or at least was undercover at one point. Of course, the reality is, as you've probably guessed if you don't already know, the actor was simply cast as an extra in season 1 and went on to be recast as Chris in an expanded role. The actor even joked in a DVD extra that he was very nervous in his season 1 appearance, wanting to avoid looking into the camera, only ending up doing just that. It's funny that he said he was so nervous about doing it when you consider how calm and settled Chris is. Just goes to show the brilliance of Akinagbe's performance, either that or his confidence by the time he was cast in season 3. Season 1 casting aside, there is something about Chris that suggests a past in some kind of legitimate establishment where he would have had training with weaponry. It isn't just his demeanour, but his military-style leather boots, the woodland camo he often wears, the stance he has when the crew have target practice, his adeptness at hunting down targets in the night like a predator. As mentioned, you would not at all be surprised if this man did indeed have a history in the military or the police force. Maybe, as a more sensible version of this theory, Chris was in the military, was discharged, worked as a security role in a courthouse for a while, before meeting Marlo or one of the Stanfield goons, maybe at the very courthouse that he worked at, and going on to ditching his rewardless 9-to-5 job and putting his military experience in the street game. So do you like this theory, or do you find it to be a little far-fetched and silly? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.